Something that most people who play video games care about is the condition of their stuff. And when it comes to our stuff, perhaps nothing is more susceptible to getting nasty than controllers. Naturally, being a channel that deals with nostalgia, reminiscing, and all that kind of good stuff, we of course need to go back to the good old days of being a kid. Okay, so here's the scenario. You and a bunch of your friends are all hanging out one weekend. Naturally, you're outside playing, doing, whatever. Maybe you're playing basketball, maybe you're climbing trees. Whatever you're doing, you're probably getting filthy and dirty. Then it comes time to come inside. Now, maybe you wash your hands, but maybe you don't. And what do you want to do now? Well, you want to play video games, of course, but you also want a snack. And that snack is probably going to be something that's going to get your hands even nastier than they already are. So then you're playing games with your nasty, grubby, disgusting hands, and those controllers are going to get, you guessed it, pretty gross. But not to worry, because we would always clean the controllers when we were done, right? Heck no, we wouldn't. Maybe if you were lucky you had a parent who would clean your controllers, but in general it was just put that stupid video game crap away, and then it was just out of sight, out of mind for them. They weren't going to be inspecting it closely and be like, oh, maybe I should clean it. No. It was just put that away and that was done with it. Now, as adults, I'm sure a lot of us are much more careful than we were as kids. And I know that a lot of you watching are parents too, so I'm sure there's a battle with your kids sometimes to make sure their hands are clean before they're playing video games, especially if it's controllers and consoles that you've had for a long time. You're going to be wanting to keep that stuff in good condition. If we pull back the curtain on my personal life a little bit, I'm actually somebody who is obsessed with washing his hands. I think most people who know me would say that I have OCD. I'm just always washing my hands. So yeah, when I'm playing video games, always before I play, I wash my hands. And the other thing I never do is I never eat food while I'm playing games either, because usually crap gets on your hands and then the crap gets on the controller. That being said, there are certain things you can eat that won't leave a mark on your hands. Usually these are foods that are dry. I think the worst examples of things you could eat are, the big stereotype would be like Cheetos or cheese puff. Anything with powdery cheese stuff on it is gonna be just terrible to have on your hands while you're playing games. And the other thing that goes into it is that your hands will get sweaty while you're playing, especially if you're playing a challenging retro game. Your hands are gonna get kind of sweaty. Now, different people have sweatier hands than other people, but in general there's going to be at least some sweat, and when you combine that with whatever you're eating, having that food residue on your hands, yeah, it's not good. And it all comes together to create what I call controller cheese. Now, controller cheese is an appropriately disgusting name for what it is, and if you pick up one of your controllers and look closely enough, you will find this controller cheese. It's always located in the little nooks and crannies of the controller. A lot of times, if the controller has little indents of, say, letters to designate the different buttons, it'll be jammed into there. A lot of times, the small little sliver of space in between where the controller connects together, because a lot of times controllers are two halves, a top and a bottom, and where they connect together, there's this small little space. Controller cheese likes to find its way into there too. Now, when it comes to the great war of gamers versus controller cheese, what are we to do? Well, there's a few options. What some people like to do is get a safety pin or something like that and just kind of like scrape in there, get in there and try and get it out that way. I find that kind of just breaks it up a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily get it out. Certainly not all of it. You need something to scrub against it and really get it all out of there. A lot of times what you'll have to do is unscrew the controller apart so that then you have it in two halves, and then you kind of have better access to really scrape it out. Also, when you do that, you can remove the buttons individually and kind of have a better maneuverability to be able to clean off those buttons. Another thing, if you really want to get serious about it, something you can do, a lot of these controller parts are dishwasher safe, and so people will just put them into their dishwasher and try to get all that crap cleaned off of them that way. Now, this may seem like a lot of work and kind of a hassle, but I'm telling you, nothing looks better or feels better in the hands than a cheeseless controller. And when a lot of you buy used controllers secondhand, yeah, I'm just gonna assume that a lot of you, like me, have a ritual of really cleaning down a controller before you ever use it yourself, because it belonged to who knows who, and all sorts of nasty stuff is going to be on that thing. Using a gross controller is one thing, but using somebody else's gross controller? No. That's just not right. Let me throw another scenario at you that I bet a lot of you have experienced. Okay, so you go to a friend's house or somebody you don't know or whatever, you're playing a game with somebody, and they hand you their second controller, and immediately you pick it up, it feels disgusting, and you're just like, yeah. This isn't my controller. It might make you wish you had just brought your own controller, but when it comes to disgusting controllers, believe me, there's even one level further we can go. These are the absolute nastiest controllers you could ever find. And where they live is at kiosks. Oh yes, because not only is it one person getting those controllers nasty, it's all sorts of people getting their nasty hands on it. And the thing is, there is no incentive to keep that controller clean for anybody using it because it doesn't belong to them. So yeah, those controllers are gonna be disgusting. You know, one time when I was a little younger, I went to use a controller at a kiosk and it felt like it was covered in Vaseline. It was so nasty. I'm scarred forever from it. And since that day, I have never played on a kiosk ever again. I'm like, I'm just going to have to chance it and buy it. I don't need to try it out first. I will just take my chances buying the game rather than taking my chances one more time touching something nasty like that. I do know that it's popular for some collectors to actually collect these kiosks, and I can only assume that they either clean the ever-loving hell out of those controllers or maybe even just replace them altogether. And on that cheerful note, we are gonna wrap things up for this video. Now, for this video's question, I wanna ask you what you think of all of this, and I'm very curious to hear your answers, but unlike some of my other videos, I'm actually gonna discourage you a little bit from leaving too much detail, at least as far as focusing on the dirt and grime itself that you find. Like, we don't need to hear in too much detail what you're finding on your controller. I'm more interested in just hearing about the experience, your attitude towards it, some of your techniques for cleaning it, all that kind of stuff. And maybe that makes me kind of a hypocrite to say that because I've gone over some nasty things myself in this video. But yeah, just for the reading benefit of everybody who's going to be looking at the comments, I think those are some good guidelines to go by. So with that, leave your responses down below as always, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the retro bird, yeah, and he's talking about video games.